Greetings, brothers and sisters. I welcome you into the peace of God, and I pray that your week has been a good one. Today, the Lord has asked me to talk to you about what sin is. If I were to entitle today, it would be right hand or left. Essentially, what this is sin is a barrier. It's like a great steel wall that separates us from God. This happened right at the beginning of Genesis 3. The sin happens. In Genesis 3:21, skin coverings are made from an animal in order for the man and the woman to be clothed. That animal's death was the result of sin. Something had to die, but that's not where it ended. All kinds of animals eventually took place of that. Ewes, calves, rams, doves, pigeons, goats, even full-blooded cows would get killed and brought as sacrifices. Their blood would cover the sin of people or a family or what have you. Essentially, blood must be paid in order to cover the gap. Thankfully for us in the new covenant, we don't have to worry about that, because Jesus' blood was shed for us for all eternity. However, sin is still strong enough, sin can still separate us, so we should avoid it. In doing so, Jesus said, if your right hand causes you to sin, cut it off and throw it away. The same way he says, if your right eye causes you to sin, gouge it out and throw it away. For it's better that you lose one part of your body than for your entire body to go into hell. It's Matthew 5:30. Now, I got to thinking, really? Does he really mean that? So I asked God one day, I said, did you really mean cut off our hand and gouge out our eye, throw it away? And God looked at me and did this. No, son, I didn't. I wasn't being literal there, so you stop being literal. And pay attention. The statements were intended as a shock and awe statement. It was intended to grab people's attention. What God meant was if you were doing something consistently that causes sin, to stop doing it permanently. Which is why he said cut off your hand. So that's kind of permanent, don't you think? Now, sin comes when a person is doing something that God asked them not to. Now, whether that's God told you to stay home and read more, or pray more, or what have you. It's different for everybody. If God tells us don't do this, he speaks not for his sake, but for ours. What he knows is so far beyond us that we can't even begin to fathom the reasons that he's asking us to do, let alone what he's actually trying to get us to avoid. So we start to wonder, why is he doing that? And eventually we cycle our way back around to trust, that we believe that what God is asking us to do is for our best interest. Because if he didn't have our best interest at heart, he wouldn't be warning us off in the first place. Now, this particular idea is something I've had to fight with recently, and I didn't have an easy time of it. My friends, whom I love dearly, and I wish would join me on this journey in God's presence, were at odds once again. My friends and I, we were at odds, and I just couldn't figure out why. I thought they were being obstinate again, like they have a tendency to do. It turns out that they were only acting out of concern for my benefit. I couldn't see it. And just like God does, he tells us to do things that are so bizarre, so out there. We don't see what he's trying to do is prevent us from holding our hands onto an iron too long, or crossing the street when a 2-ton death machine's barreling toward us. Now, I realize those are odd specific examples, but let's explain them. When I was 3 years old, I was curious at what an iron was. So I found one and went to touch it. Well, let's just put it this way. My right hand was never the same again. It hurt. But I figured out real quick that you're not supposed to touch the iron because it's hot and it hurts so much. Anyway, now I know that all of you in my audience can see the poor life choice to run out into the street when there's a 2-ton truck coming your way. But to a small child whose realm of focus is on the ball across the street, they neither see nor comprehend the massive metal machine barreling towards them. All they see is the ball, and that's what they're going to get. And thankfully, the protective parent instincts of a parent kick in, and the child is safe from harm. But in the kids' minds, they don't get it. All they see is the ball across the street. Their parents aren't letting them go to get it. They think, does mom not want me to have the ball? Is the ball bad or am I bad? And on it goes. It's confusing. Now this is primarily for those of you who don't know about God. Those that do know, this is kind of more of a, oh, well, yeah, I think I knew that kind of thing. It's just more like a reiteration. But we have to trust God if He knows what He's doing. And grace enters the picture for the times when we do fall and we do get separated. God says, okay, it's okay, it happens. He allows us to come back. Now, sin has an allure, but it comes with a terrible price. Now, God knows that price, and He knows it would be too much for us. That's why He sent Jesus, who was essentially stripped of His skin and paid that horrible price so that we can be reconciled with God, and God could be the Father that He wants to be. We can come to Him with our problems and He'll help us. He knows the way we work inside and out. He knows what we all face. That way He can show us the issues we have and how to deal with them. But that's another sermon.